So then welcome today. Thank you for joining me. Uh, this happens to be one of my favorite topics, very close to my heart. And it's also very interesting, funny in some ways when we talk of hypnotherapy and the myths and the doubts that we have. So here I am today, going to talk to you about hypnotherapy, frequently asked questions that I get asked mostly when I have a new client, when I'm at a social gathering about hypnotherapy. So my objective today is to bring to you the understanding of the science behind it, to bring to you the difference between what we think hypnotherapy is and what actually it is. So it is hypnotherapy FAQs, demystifying myths and understanding the science of the mind. Before we go ahead, I will first and foremost introduce myself. For some of you who are here, I know you and you know me. And for the ones who I'm meeting for the first time, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Arpita. I'm originally from India. I've been in Dubai for more than 13 years now. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I practice at JLT, at Illuminations JLT. And before I go into more about my work as a hypnotherapist, it's interesting to share with you that I came into this line of work, and I call this my second innings. In my first innings, as I say, I'm an MBA. I studied economics, and I've worked in the corporate sector for more than 15 years. And then I was very fortunate that I got introduced to the science of the mind. I came in initially to work on myself as a client, and I came in completely neutrally and also with a lot of myths at that time that I had personally about hypnotherapy, but I was open to exploring uh, this line of work for something that I wanted to work on. I was working on a physical issue. I had severe motion sickness. And yeah, when I started to work with this, it's not only healed me, it also healed my daughter who had exactly the same symptoms as I did. And that's when I came back wanting to study this line of work. And long story short, I found this to be so intriguing. It took me some time to move from my then corporate job, and I really loved the company I worked with. I really loved my job, and so it was not out of spite or any negative feeling, but I got drawn towards it. And yeah, my journey began with hypnotherapy. So hence this is so close to my heart, the topic that I'm sharing with you today. Apart from being a therapist practicing hypnotherapy, I am also a teacher of integrated clinical hypnotherapy. So I teach students who are interested to explore the science for their own lives, for the benefit of their own mental health, for their families, or even aspiring therapists who would want to take this up as a vocation or as a career. Apart from hypnotherapy, I also practice transpersonal regression therapy, family constellation, and I'm also a corporate trainer. So I kind of bridge the gap, because of my experience with the corporate world and with the world of wellness now. And here I am today talking about one of my most favorite modalities. So this is what I have in mind for you today. This is how I've structured it. However, it's not necessary that we have to stick to it. As I said, you can share in the chat about if there's anything else that you would want to know, specifically because we're talking of myths and questions and doubts about hypnotherapy as a modality. So feel free to put in any questions, any doubts that you have. That is the purpose of this webinar. So I would be talking about first giving you an introduction to what is hypnotherapy vis-a-vis, the idea that we have generally in mind, and maybe because of, misinterpretations. I have picked for today, my top myths and truths, like what exactly I hear sometimes from people vis-a-vis. As a practicing therapist, I could explain those myths and bust them and kind of give you an idea of what it is actually about, which will automatically bring us to understanding the science behind it, the science of mind. Why would you choose hypnotherapy as a modality? And for any of you who are intrigued by the science of the mind and would want to take this up as a career, as a vocation, I would be more than happy to give you kind of a roadmap to explore this. And I will keep some time for at the end of the webinar for questions and answers as well. I'm also aware, I guess this is also live on Facebook. So anybody who is joining me on Facebook, I'm on Zoom, so I won't be able to see your questions or comments immediately. But please do feel free to comment on Facebook. After the webinar is over, I will go on Facebook and I'll try to answer your questions then. Okay, I'm just letting quickly check if there's any requests on the chat. There is a background noise. Is it still there? Because I am not able to hear it. It's very actually clear and silent for me, but oh, it's when I move, it may be my headphones. I will see if I can change that. Thank you, Lucine, because it can be very irritating listening if I move and that makes a noise. Just give me a moment. I'm just going to change the headphones and see if it works better. Hi, is it better? Is it audible? If you could just give me a feedback. Okay. Okay, thank you. I will try not to move as much as possible. So that, but if it bothers you, just let me know. I will try without the headphones, but most of the time if I'm without it, there is actually much more background noise than usual. So yeah, okay. So coming straight, deep diving into the topic today, what is hypnotherapy? Now, as interested participants today, is there anyone who wants to share what do you think is hypnotherapy, or what brought you to this webinar today about this line of work? What are your thoughts? So please feel free to share on the chat box. And of course, I will go on to, talking much more in details about it. I'm just going to give it a minute to see if I have any responses, and then I'll move ahead. Getting into the subconscious. Yes. Ali, I'm a hypnotherapy student. I've just finished level 4. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. In that case, Ali, it would be very nice if you can also join us for our hypnotherapy support groups. It's exclusively for hypnotherapy students. Maybe you will like that as well. But anyways, welcome here. Yes, Yasmin, it is about getting about the subconscious mind. That's what I'm coming to as we progress. So in a very simple way to understand the word hypnosis or hypnotherapy, the word hypnosis comes from the Greek word hypnos, which means nervous sleep. It's a paradox, right? So I cannot be nervous and I cannot be sleeping at the same time. So it's a paradox when you translate it directly, but actually what it means is that hypnosis is a state of your mind and body in which your physical body is so relaxed as if you are sleeping, but your mind is hyperactive. Now, the nervousness that we mean here, we're talking about, is not being anxious or being nervous or fidgety. To the contrary, it means your body will be in such a state where you're completely relaxed. However, your mind is working actually very fast in a very active state. So it is like any other state of mind. So or state of awareness, if you would want to call it. So I will come into the details of it when we talk of being awake, right? How we are at the moment, vis-a-vis being asleep, which is another state. And compared to that, what does it mean to be under a hypnotic trance or under hypnosis? Now, hypnosis is not something alien. It's not something artificial. Each one of us experience hypnosis every single day, at least twice. When you're going to sleep, so you can check this for you tonight, when you're going to bed and that space between you're awake and you're fully asleep, that time in between, that feeling in between, that is the hypnotic trance. Same thing when you get up in the morning, when you're not completely awake and you're not completely sleeping, you're kind of moving from your sleep state into your awake state, is also the hypnotic trance. When you're watching Netflix, you're hypnotized. Whenever you're watching TV for more than 3 minutes, you go into the state of hypnosis. So what I'm trying to say is, this is not something new to your body or to your mind. It's actually a very natural state. And this natural state can also be evoked in a clinical setup. And when we do that, when we evoke that state in a clinical setup, that is when we are going to hypnotherapy. So that means there is an issue which somebody wants to work with, and we induce hypnosis and we work on that issue. That is probably the most simplest way in which I can explain to you. I will keep coming back to this definition. So if you have any questions at any time, you can absolutely ask me. Okay, coming to the interesting part of myths and, okay, if somebody can please admit this person, because it's illuminations, if you could just remove this, otherwise I'm not able to show my slide completely. Okay, so myths about hypnosis, myths about the science, myths about hypnotherapy. This is from my perspective, but I'm pretty sure each one of us has heard many things probably about this science. So yes, this is the space where you can please share if you have heard something that you have a doubt on. So myth number 1 is, as a client of hypnosis or hypnotherapy, I am helpless. That is not true. To the contrary, a part of you is very much in control. So I will now go on to explain the theory of the mind, the science of the mind. So mind has 2 parts, right? There's a conscious part and a subconscious part. Being under hypnosis doesn't mean that you're helpless, doesn't mean that you do not have control. When we work with a client in hypnotherapy, first and foremost, there is a consent that is taken. There's a permission that is taken from client. At any point, even after the consent, after we start the session, at any point, if client is not comfortable, client has right to stop it and move out of it. So it is not that you go into zombie mode. It's not that you go where you can't exercise your control. It's a complete myth. To the contrary, you are both, you're accessing both conscious as well as your subconscious. So it's not that you're helpless or you can't move or you can't talk. You are talking. As a therapist, I am talking to you when I'm working with you. Number 2 is, many times I get asked this question that, what if I cannot be hypnotized? Or not everyone can be hypnotized. Or I've heard of people who nothing happens to them. So as I mentioned just a few minutes back, that hypnosis is a very natural state. So if you're sleeping at night, if you're going to sleep, sleeping and getting up in the morning, it means you are experiencing the state of hypnosis. Who cannot be hypnotized are people who do not want to be hypnotized. Again, herein comes the question of permission, comes the question of respect, comes the question of consent. So I'll tell you when it will not work. When I am told by somebody to come in and work with hypnotherapy, that is the time when there will be some kind of doubts or resistance. Those are the times when it may not work. But it's not about that anybody or everybody cannot be hypnotized. Now, having said that, each person is different. And for ones who are interested in doing the course, you will learn that the induction technique can be very different for different kind of people, depending on our personalities, depending on how we take in information, depending on how we give out information. The induction mode of hypnosis can be and is very, very, very different. It's not a one-stop shop where we say this is the only way to induct. Induction can happen through, for example, when somebody is using a script, induction can happen through the body, induction can happen through the mind. There are many ways of inducting. If somebody is willing to undergo hypnotherapy, it's a myth that, oh, I'm not capable of it, or I cannot do it. You can do it if you feel like it, if you believe in it, and if this is something that resonates with you. Myth number 3 is hypnosis is same as sleeping. So under hypnosis, I do not remember what has happened, or I'm not too sure of what has happened, or I'm completely sleeping. It is not same as sleeping. It is one of the states of awareness, but certainly not same as sleep. Let me explain this to you through a different example of brain waves. So when we are awake, like right now, you and me are awake, and our brain waves have a certain amplitude, have a certain wavelength, and we call that beta state. So in beta state, we are awake. Now, when I am winding down or when I am being inducted, when brain waves, the cycle starts to change. From beta, we go into alpha. From alpha, we go into theta. And from theta, we go into delta. Delta is sleep. Beta is awake. And the state in between is hypnosis. So it is not same as sleeping. You are in a very deeply relaxed state, but you're not sleeping. And most of the times when you're doing a session in hypnotherapy, you will remember what has happened. So it's not that you've fallen asleep and miracle has happened. No, to the contrary, you're very conscious. Your conscious mind also takes in a lot of inputs throughout the session. Number 4, hypnosis makes you reveal deep secrets against your will. No, it doesn't happen that way. And precisely doesn't happen because that's not the intent or the objective of a session. The intent or objective of a hypnotherapy session is to find relief, to find solution to certain problems that someone is facing in their lives, which is illogical. So the logical stuff we can deal with. You know, if I have this issue, I will work through this cognitively, and if I have a solution, I'm not going to go and visit a hypnotherapist. So for example, I'm looking for a job, I find a job, I'm happy in my job. I'm not going to go talking about that to my therapist. What is illogical? It is when I have a conscious desire about something, but for whatever reason that I don't understand, I'm not able to achieve it. So for example, I want to lose weight, I eat healthy, and I exercise, and I do everything that has been told by my nutritionist, and yet I'm unable to lose weight. So cognitively, logically, this doesn't make sense. Or it could be, I want to quit smoking and I've tried everything, it is not working. So my focus here is that people come with an objective, people come with a presenting issue, that there's an issue in my life I cannot deal with. So this is not, and no therapist would have, you know, an intent to dig out deep secrets which is against your will. Your will is still there, and the premise of each session is based on client's will. We follow client's will completely. And many a times, yes, repressed memories could come up and things could come up, but that is very different from going and digging for secrets. And under no circumstances, if it is against your will, that can never come up. We stick to an objective, we stick to the contract of the session, and that is about it. So it has got very, very clear ethical boundaries. The next one, hypnotherapy is like magic. It's a mystical practice. Yes, it is magical. I would agree. The results are sometimes absolutely magical, but it is not magic. It's not mumbo jumbo. It's not a mystical practice. This is a science. This is a science that can be learned, that can be practiced, and that gives results. So yes, sometimes we are in awe of what the results comes up as a client. Like I go with something which I've been, carrying for my entire life. And then in a couple of sessions, you see a huge change. The feeling is magical, but the practice is neither magical nor mystical. It is extremely clinical, scientific, backed by research, and proven by testimonials of people who have undergone this kind of a treatment. And last but not the least, hypnotherapists have special powers. No, we don't. We are as human as anyone else. We have no special powers. We don't kind of, how do I explain this? Again, it's not magical, it's not mystical. If you would call knowledge a special power, that's the only special power we have. We learn a science, we practice that science, and we bring it to enhance the well-being, the health, the mental health, physical health, emotional health, and even spiritual health of people. But you don't need to have any qualifications. You need not to be indoctrinated into any kind of special mystical powers. So those were the myths that I mostly come across, and I'm probably talking to every second person, not only for people who come in for therapy, but also friends, family, in social gatherings. But having said that, I'm again going to check if there's any myth, if there's any doubt that any of you have, you please feel free to raise it in the chat box. It will be interesting for me to know as well, and to answer and clear your doubts. I'm just going to give it a minute to check if there's anything that anyone would like to share. Can past lives come up? Yes, now it depends on, Yasmin, what you describe a past life as, because when we talk, I'm going to answer this in the next slide when we go into the science of the mind. So for, to give you a broader view for everyone, not only just for the question, thanks for raising it. What we talk of is, we would call it evolutionary memory or ancestral memory. So why? Because then that encompasses whatever your, my, or anyone else's belief system is. So do ancestral memories come up? Do past lives come up? Do evolutionary memories come up? All the time. Yes, definitely. It comes from a part of the subconscious mind, what we call as primitive mind. And I'm going to share with you all the details on it. So just hold on, Yasmin. But if I don't answer you rightly the way you want it, just remind me, I will come back to you. Julie, what's the difference between writing a script for a meditation and reciting it and hypnotizing someone? Okay, so Julie, let me try and explain first what is the difference between meditation and hypnosis. Maybe that will answer it. So imagine you're standing at the side of a swimming pool. Now, you go to the side and you jump into the pool. So of course you will go deep and then you will float up. Vis-a-vis, now imagine the same swimming pool, but instead of jumping into the pool from the side, you go up and climb on the, what do you call that, the board, the diving board, and from the diving board you dive. What is going to be the difference? You will go deeper and you will go faster. So jumping from the side is like through meditation. Jumping from the diving board is like hypnosis. It is very, very similar. One is a faster process. It goes deeper within a few seconds. What you're probably describing here, Julie, is like guided meditation. You mean that if you have a script and somebody is reading it out for you, you still can be in the hypnotic trance with that. But when we say we hypnotize people, we are saying that we are creating a clinical setup using script, using not only, see, script is only one way of inducting hypnosis. Hypnosis can also be inducted face-to-face talking. It can be inducted through writing. Hypnosis can be inducted through the body. So there's a lot of body work, and there are parts of the body which, when touched, pressed, tapped, can create the same way. So script is just one way of getting you into that trance, getting you into that meditative space. But when you study the science of hypnotherapy, there are so many other ways to get there. The difference is these are different routes. So for example, if you have to go from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, you can say I'll straight go through, say for example, hypnosis. So I'm going to go on Sheikh Zayed Road, or you may say I will come from Al Wasl Road and then land up on Sheikh Zayed Road, or I may go by Mohammed bin Zayed Road. They are different routes to the same dive into your subconscious. Let me know if that answers your question. Of course, if not, I will come back to it. Okay, Julie, thank you. There's one more question, Deborah. If someone agrees to receive hypnotherapy consent, but do not believe that it works, will it work? And if no, is there a placebo effect? I am the living example, Deborah, in front of you. When I came in many years back, when I was introduced to hypnotherapy, I had consent. I said, yes, I will try it. Did I believe in it? I'm not sure. I was very neutral. So I came with an open mindset saying that, okay, I will try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, I have nothing to lose. So I'm a living example. I did not fully say, okay, I'm going to go and I believe in it and it's going to work. It does work. There's a term called fait accompli, which means if you even just follow the process, if you follow the lead of your therapist, you can call it placebo effect, but I think we call it fait accompli, more like, if you follow it, it will still give you the results. So many a time people come in, not because they don't believe in it, because they might not have the information or, the information that creates credibility for that person for this line of work. It still works 100%. I think mostly, there are people who wants to try it. I'll be very open, this line of work is not that it's anyone's or everyone's first choice. We try many things, and when it doesn't work, we say, I'm going to try this as well. So yes, to answer your question in yes and no, definitely it still works. If you have consent, if you have the will that I will try this and I'm going to open to this, you may not believe it, it will still work. And again, for any of you, same for Deborah, if that doesn't answer, I will come back later to your question as well. Elizabeth, there are some hypnosis used in cheating, manipulating people, like stealing some money and belongings. How to deal with this? Elizabeth, I don't know how to deal with this, but does it exist? It's not happened in my experience, but I would say that yes. So let me explain the difference between hypnotism and hypnotherapy. So when we talk of hypnotherapy and hypnotism, two different things completely. It is the same science. Now, it's like, it's science. Any line of science can be used for betterment of the world, and the same science can be used for destruction. Same goes for this science as well. Yes, I have heard this. I have heard of, you mentioned your country, but I have heard that many a times, there's stealing, there's cheating. Can it happen? Probably it can happen. What is the difference? The difference is consent and no consent. Permission and no permission. Now, as a teacher, as a student, as a practicing therapist, I do not know how to do the other part, because neither am I taught, nor I do teach anybody how to get into the science of hypnotism. Forget cheating or get stealing, even when hypnosis is done on a stage, as you see volunteers come up and I will click my finger and somebody quacks like a duck. It's similar. It is hypnotism, which means the person or the volunteer has no control over the conscious mind. That control is completely gone. In hypnotherapy, you have complete control of where you are, what is happening, and how it is happening. So it is completely different. You can just look at it from two sides of the same coin, one to benefit and heal the world, and the other to create not so good things. How can we deal with it? There are many ways of strengthening your own mind power. There are many ways. There are a lot of techniques that people use. Maybe if I have time by the end, maybe I can talk about it. But if you're doing the course, Elizabeth, then yeah, throughout the course and later in the later level 4s and 5, we do talk of, how as people who have the knowledge of the science, how we can work on ourselves so that we don't get manipulated. But I can come back to you if you need more details. Yee Robinson says, can we hypnotize ourselves like meditation? Yes, absolutely. It's extremely common and it's a very powerful process, and we call it self-hypnosis. So every time you're working with a therapist, or even if you're listening to a recording or say something on YouTube or on social media, it is still what we call as heterohypnosis, which means you are being hypnotized by something that is external to you, your therapist, a audio file or a visual file, whatever. But you can work, it is called self-hypnosis. And in the course that I'm talking about here today, we teach self-hypnosis right at level 1, because that's the first, you start to work on yourself, and it is like meditation. But yeah, there are certain parts which are different. To answer your question, 100%, and it's a very beautiful experience to do this. This is what we as therapists, we do, like our self-hypnosis, our self-work every single day. And also all the students, my students who are here today, it's the same thing. So yes, of course, you can. It's a very beautiful, powerful, very short, compact process called self-hypnosis. I am going to go forward. Please keep sending your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So, because I'm just mindful of the time, and I would want to, finish on time as well. So coming to the next part. Now, when we're talking of the science of hypnotherapy, I've already spoken to you bits and pieces about the science of the mind. Let's deep dive into understanding what is the science behind it. How does this work? Which brings me to the question of what is mind? Now, this is so intriguing because if I ask you, I'm pretty sure each one of you will have a very different, unique description of mind. But just for the webinar today, what we are talking of mind is, we are not talking of our brains to begin with. Now, this was my research as a student many years back when I was told this, that mind is not same as brain. It was mind-boggling. I just couldn't make sense, but it makes perfect sense when I look at even the Oxford Dictionary. If you even Google or you go on Oxford Dictionary, you'll see even the dictionary it defines mind as that element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world, their experiences, to think, to feel, the faculty of consciousness and thought. Which means it's an element of a person. It's not a body part. It is like, for example, I'm connecting to you. I'm sitting in front of my laptop. Now, a laptop is something which is the hardware. I can touch, I can feel. I'm clicking one by one slides so that I can reach to you. But just having the laptop doesn't allow me to connect to you. What do I need to connect? I need Zoom, which is a software. So, in very simple terms, mind is a powerful tool that we have as human beings. The brain and the body, imagine, is like the hardware, like my computer in front of me. And the mind is the software that operates on this hardware. And the mix of both is how we are perceiving the world, how we are working through it. It's a tool. End of the day, it's a tool. And on that note, I'll leave you with a question. You don't have to answer that now, but food for thought. If mind is a tool, are you in charge of your mind, or your mind is in charge of you? Are you in control of your mind, or is your mind controlling you? And when you answer that for yourself, it will also give you a lot of clarity in terms of areas of our lives where we feel a little not so good. So in holistic sciences, in mind sciences, we define mind as a vibrating ball of energy located all around us, the center of which is at the pit of the stomach. I know it sounds a little weird when you read this, but it's actually very logical. So imagine this software is all around this hardware and is operating through the hardware of the body, through the hardware of the brain, and that is how we are experiencing life. Now, what I find extremely intriguing is when we say that the center of this sphere, that is the mind in which my body is soaked, it's almost like sponge in water, is the epicenter of that is at the pit of my stomach. And if we look at human physiology, what is at the pit of my stomach? It's my small intestines. In other words, it's my gut. And hence we have this phrase called gut feeling. Now, technically, your gut and my gut doesn't feel anything. It digests the food that we eat. Then why do we say this? And we say this very commonly. We say, you know, I have a gut feeling about this person, or I have a gut feeling about this issue. This is because this is how we define our mind, our intelligence, the intangible intelligence through which we are living our life. Now, there are many schools of thought, and each school has a different way of looking at it. Some believe the brain is also one of the seat of the mind through which it operates, certainly so. Some believe the heart, and hence we say, you know, my heart wants something, but my head wants something else, and definitely the gut. So this, what I'm bringing to you today, is from the approach of looking at ourselves holistically. It's just not the physical body. There is additional intelligence which we may be aware or we may not be aware of, but that kind of works on this hardware. And then when it works on the hardware, we feel things physically. So if this is the sphere that we're talking about, the ball of vibrating ball of energy all around us, we discussed this briefly, that it has two parts. It's got the conscious and it's got the subconscious. Now, the conscious part is what we are doing. You know, we are talking, we are analyzing, we're debating, we are answering. This part of the mind is around 10%. Some schools of thought say that it's much lesser than 10%, probably only for 5%, which means we have a way more bigger subconscious part. Now, look at this as as an iceberg. So we are only able to see the top part of it. So we are operating, we are living our lives using only 10 to 12 max % of our mind capacity. Imagine if we could tap into the subconscious zone, how our lives would be completely different. So what does this part do? The conscious part, as I just said, the conscious part is all about thinking, logic, analysis, feeling, decision-making, judgment. So our entire lives is what we are doing, is what we do using the conscious part of the mind, which means there's a bigger part. And what does this bigger part do? And strange enough, this bigger part does not have a list of things. You see, it's actually very simple. It has just two very important functions. The first thing is survival. Your and my subconscious mind keeps us alive. How? Because your subconscious mind is in control of your internal organ function. In a different way, whatever is voluntary is under the control of your conscious mind. So if I raise my right hand and I wave it to you, I can do it very consciously. I know what is right. This is my hand and I know how to wave. However, if you notice deeply, there are very few things that we can do consciously with our bodies. So it's so easy for me to wave my hand to you, then it should be equally easy for me to control the rate at which my liver is functioning at the moment. Can I do it? I can't, because I cannot consciously control my internal body functions. My survival, the fact that I'm alive, is actually guided by my subconscious. And my entire internal body function is, the custodian of that is the subconscious mind. So it keeps us alive. And the second function it has is it stores. So imagine your conscious mind is like the hard drive of, is like the CPU of your computer, which means central processing unit. Your conscious mind is constantly processing all the information that is coming in and trying to make sense of it. And your subconscious mind is like the hard drive of your computer, where you're saving your files. Now, these files are your experiences of your life, from the time that you've been in your mother's womb to this very moment. So imagine it's a room full of archives, or a huge hard drive. It's like the world's smartest computer. That's what we are talking of in a very different way. Every moment of your life has been stored there, filed without judgment, filed without logic, because those functions are only part of your conscious mind. Now, to make it more interesting, if the strength of the conscious mind is 1 times x, the strength of the subconscious mind is 6,000 times X. Now, this explains why I logically, cognitively want something, but there's something that happens to me and I'm not able to achieve it. When my conscious desires, which is 1X, is not in sync, in alignment with my subconscious patterns, there is misalignment. And guess what? If there's a tug of war between your conscious desire, which doesn't match your programming of your software, who's going to win? Of course, the more stronger part, which means this is the reason when we talk of, I want to quit smoking, but I can't. Or I have a pattern of attracting the wrong partners in my life. Or I'm unable to save money, though I'm earning money. All these questions are coming from the domain of the illogical, like it doesn't make sense. I am smart, I'm intelligent, I have a good life, and yet I'm not able to crack this. This is when your conscious mind and your subconscious is not aligned. Hypnotherapy is a modality of aligning these two minds. So we cannot fight the subconscious, and it's not about saying who is more stronger. Subconscious is way stronger. There is no doubt about it. Hypnotherapy is trying to find out what are those subconscious patterns, blocks that we carry unconsciously that are sabotaging my conscious desires of my life. Now, the subconscious part has again two parts to it. One is what we call as modern memory. So modern memory is, for me, for Arpita, modern memory is my life. Whatever I have experienced starting from probably my mother's womb till this very moment. We also carry another part of the mind, and this brings me back to, Yasmin, your question about, as you say, past life, ancestral memory, evolutionary memory. Each one will have a different way of explaining it depending on our belief systems. But what we are talking about is primitive memory. Primitive memory is something that you have taken in. So this is evolutionary. This has come through you through generations. This is something that doesn't belong to you, yet you carry an imprint. It's like your DNA. It's like your genetic code that you are carrying. And both of these comprise of the subconscious space. And from the space is what we react when we say, there's a trigger in the environment and I start to react in a particular way. And we always react out of a fight or flight. And we recognize that these are our two very basic responses to any threats, anything that comes out in the environment. And when we are responding in that manner, we are responding from our subconscious. And very quickly, we also have, because it's interesting, so I will still try to squeeze this in, because there is a third part of the mind, which is formed between the age 0 to 8. Hence, in every culture, in every religion, in every part of the world, we say that be very careful how you bring up your kids, what you tell them, because within these years, what happens actually is our mind gets programmed. Our belief systems are formed. And how? It depends on 4 factors. It is the socio setup in which a child is brought up, the family, the extended family, the country, the region. It is the economic setup of the family, financial situation. The second E is education, that the child receives or doesn't receive. And the last R is the religious beliefs. In simple words, conditioning. And this conditioning that happens in the first 8 years of your life is like your software is being programmed. We program our mind for the first 8 years of our lives. And for the rest of our lives, we only run that program. And I now, it sounds a little almost sad that because none of us are 8 years old, which means our belief systems are already formed. Yes, they are. And on that note, not all belief systems are bad. There are certain belief systems that serve us good purpose. Now, again, where does hypnotherapy come in? If I can identify for myself that this issue in my life comes from an age-old belief system, which is probably come to me either through my primitive memory or through my modern memory, is not serving me purpose anymore. Hypnotherapy is the science of rewiring those belief systems. So we don't take away memories, we don't delete memories, we don't put in false memories. These are again also myths of hypnotherapy, that we create new memories. We don't. We work on those files that you see on the screen now. We work on, imagine there's a corrupted file. Imagine there's a corrupted belief system that is not today serving you purpose. That is what we work on. We don't delete facts. We work on the emotional charge, the excess charge that we are carrying, that is disrupting my life in the present moment. And maybe this charge and this file has helped me in the past, but today it is not serving any purpose. So this is how we integrate the understanding of the mind. We bring in what happens in the state of hypnosis. We are going to take permission from the conscious mind. We're going to break through. We're going to create a passage in the critical filter, which is our belief systems. And we're going to deep dive into our subconscious mind and find the diagnostics, where's the origin of this problem. Once we know the origin of the problems, we rewire, or as we say, we reprogram parts of the mind that is today not serving me any purpose. So this is what, when we say reprogramming, this is exactly what we do under hypnosis. We don't erase an experience, we neutralize. If any experience in my life is creating a ripple effect on me today and hampering my well-being, we neutralize the excess charge that has been brought forward through that experience. We also detach our sense of self from that experience. So I may be feeling sad, but that doesn't make me a sad person. Sad is an emotion. Sadness is an emotion that I'm feeling. And through hypnosis, we have that clarity of first detaching ourself, how we define ourselves, from that experience. And when we are able to detach that, we neutralize. So that is what we call as releasing that toxicity, releasing that pattern, releasing that block. So basically, we are reprogramming our thoughts, our belief systems, by healing out the subconscious patterns which are contradicting, which are in conflict with our conscious desires today. This, in a nutshell, is hypnotherapy, the science behind it, the intent behind it, and the experience behind it. Okay, I'm just going to look at the question. If the subconscious mind is way more powerful, why clinical psychologists who studied the mind for years work in psychotherapy on the conscious mind? Well, Deborah, every science has, a different way of looking at it. And I say that with respect for psychotherapists, for psychology, for any other cognitive behavioral therapy. See, different kind of people would resonate with different kind of therapies. I can answer it for myself. Why I am in hypnotherapy and not in any other modality is because for me, it's 80-20. If I know that it is the subconscious programming that is so effective when I focus on that, I would rather be in that zone. But it's different modalities, different like stuff that works for different people. I'll check if I have a slide. I can also maybe refer to that in terms of, the efficiency of this modality is way more, and hence it is so intriguing. So coming back to what we discussed earlier about hypnosis, just a recap of from now that you know about the conscious and the subconscious mind. You see the subconscious mind in the slide, as you see, is whether you're awake, whether you're sleeping, whether you're in hypnotic trance, subconscious mind is always awake and always in control. And why so? That is because subconscious mind controls internal organ functions, which means subconscious mind has to be awake for us to be alive. Now, the difference happens in the state of the conscious mind. When we are awake, like we are at the moment, the conscious mind is also awake and also in control. But in sleep state, when you go at night to sleep, your subconscious is still awake, but your conscious mind is sleeping, which means it has no control on how you are and where you are. The difference between sleep and hypnosis is the conscious mind is still awake, but not in control. So it will not interfere in the process of the reprogramming, of the rewiring, yet it will take the imprints, because that is important. The session will last for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, but beyond that, your life will only change when you actually also take responsibility, you take actions to bring that change. Hence, it's a myth that your conscious mind isn't there. Your conscious mind is very much there, but it's not in control of the session. Who is in control is still your subconscious. Why hypnotherapy? Deborah, this may answer your question. If you ask me about the effectiveness, this is from the American Health magazine. And as you see, compared to behavioral therapy or compared to psychoanalysis, if you look, the effectiveness of hypnotherapy is way, way more. The recovery rate is 93% after 6 sessions, compared to, as you see in behavioral and psychoanalysis or psychology for that matter. Well, and I say this with utmost respect. This is not to say not to say that, hypnotherapy is the only way to go, or that is what everybody needs to do. But yeah, this is what it is. This is what data says, that this is way more effective than many other modalities. Having said that, with complete respect, different people gain in different ways depending on their mindset. You see, on your belief systems, on your social conditioning. Why hypnotherapy? Why would you take it up as a client? Why would you take it up as a hobby, as a therapist? In whichever way you want to integrate the science in your life. If you ask me, to me, it's a life skill. And I truly wish I had this knowledge before I passed high school, because, my life choices and the way life would go would be completely different. To me, it is as good as learning how to swim, learning how to ride a bike. This is as important as that, because it gives us so much clarity about the issues that we face throughout our lives as patterns, maybe health issues, maybe emotional issues, maybe spiritual issues. The answer lies here. And also why I am a student, as I say, I am a client, I'm a teacher, and I'm a therapist of this science, is because this is one of the safest modalities that is around. And it's very simple. Why is it safe? Because here we are working with the subconscious. And guess what? Subconscious keeps you alive. So subconscious has that job of keeping you safe. So it's extremely effective. It is completely safe. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool to know, to have, even as an individual, even if you don't want to become a therapist, but this knowledge is extremely, extremely empowering. Who can be a hypnotherapist? As I said, again, a myth is that you have to have a specialization. It's a myth that you have to have studied XYZ. No, you do not need any specific qualifications. This line of work is open to everyone. It doesn't matter what religion you come from, what nationality you come from, what have you done previously, what are your qualifications, none of that. All you need is that interest, is that zest to learn and to understand. And if what I've brought to you today, if this resonates with you and if this makes you curious, that is all that you need. Where can you study? Well, I'm bringing to you what I have studied and what I teach. Of course, there are many, many reputed schools of hypnotherapy around the world. Of course, what I'm bringing to you is from my own experience. I would urge you, for anyone who is interested, to visit the website of ECA. This is the institute that I've studied. I'm also a certified trainer with them, and I teach clinical hypnotherapy now. For ones who are in the UAE, you could be trained in Dubai, you could be trained in Abu Dhabi. You could contact Illuminations for more details on the locations. We keep doing these seminars every 2 weeks. So if you know of people who are also interested, this is also what we call as the foundation courses sometimes. For Ali and someone said that you came from level 4, please join our support group. So once you start this course and you're part of the team, we hold support groups every month, which means one of the teachers would be holding these exclusively, the groups exclusively for the students, so that you are in constant touch with your teachers. There's problem solving, there are discussions going forward. And for, as I said, I will not get into the details of the course. For anybody who's interested, you can either contact me, you can contact Illuminations, and we will send you all the details. This course is recognized worldwide. It's an ISO certified, it's a standardized course. You could do it here or anywhere else in the world. The delivery is just the same. You are given, after you complete your level 5 levels, then you are given an opportunity to work on case studies. You're assigned mentors. It's a completely integrated approach. By that, I mean, we bring both the physical, the therapeutic, Western clinical hypnotherapeutic parts to it. We also bring to you the metaphysical aspect of life. So that's where we call it, it's completely integrated. And you could do this right now because of the situation with COVID. You could either do it on site. It's a 2-day program for level 1, and they'll inform you about the other levels. So you could do it in a classroom setting. We do have very restricted numbers at the moment because of social distancing. Or if you're not either comfortable coming into the class, or you're based somewhere else in the world, you could do this online. And later you could always catch up on the practicals. So of course you will need to do both, but you could try both the models, the online or the on-site. Who certifies you? Of course, ECA certifies you at every level, and you get a final certificate after your case studies and interview. For people who are in the UAE, this course is attested by the KHDA. So after your final certification, Illuminations will help you to get your KHDA attestation done. It has affiliations around the world. As you see, I've just put in a couple of names, but if you go to their website, you will be able to see there are way more acknowledgements and attestations. When can you start? I think now is always a good time to start. If you need more information, because I'm just aware of the time, you could book a consult, you could register with Illuminations, and they're going to help you with it. Get in touch and begin your journey into wellness. That brings me to questions. So I'm going to go back to the chat. Julie, during the course, do we get to learn concrete hypnosis techniques to practice on others and ourselves? 100%. You only get certified at every level when you have learned those techniques. So what will happen in the classroom is we will go through the theory, which will be followed by a practical demo. By, for example, when I'm teaching level 1, I would be doing a demo for the class, and then you would split into groups and you will practice on each other. You are given scripts, you are given manuals, so you're absolutely well equipped to do that. And yes, practice, practice, practice. There is no other way to learn. Not only in class, so you have to practice in class to qualify to get certified for that level and move to the next level. As I mentioned, we also hold these monthly support groups, Julie, which you can join, and you can also share your learnings, your challenges. So this is all about learning, and this is just not reading online and understanding the science. Practice is a must and a very, very important part, because every person you practice with will bring up something new. So yes, 100%. Indira, you are in India now. How can I get practical training? Okay, I do not know about the situation in India, but I believe we have not, ECA has not started practical trainings. I would urge you to contact, okay, look at the website in ECA, there are contact details, and reach out to ECA in India and check if they are doing practical training. Because of the lockdown and the situation, I'm not the right person to say whether they're doing it right or not. You could do online anywhere, and you could catch up on the practical training in your city. If you get stuck, I am going to leave my contact details and Illuminations contact details. So if you're not able to reach out to ECA, just reach out to me or to Illuminations, and we will guide you to the right person in ECA in India, so that they can give you the correct information. Who can join a support group? Only the students. So once you have done level 1, you have cleared level 1, till you clear level 5, you can join the support groups. It's an exclusive closed group meeting, but only for students. Veronica, is there any risk if I follow online audio guide and try to hypnotize myself as a beginner? Well, it's difficult to answer that, Veronica. I personally believe that, whatever is available on the internet, they are not as intense, or it shouldn't harm you in any way. Um, but I cannot guarantee, because, it depends on what it will trigger. So imagine you are in your subconscious space, and one of those files open up, whatever is that corrupted file we were talking about. So there is no risk per se. I don't think it's going to I think at most it may make you a little anxious or agitated. But if you have a doubt, why don't you first try it with a specialist and follow instructions from there? But I know of many people who do guided meditations, or even, sometimes, for sleep, sometimes for anxiety. And I haven't come across like a risk. But if you have that doubt, and because you're asking it, maybe do it with a professional, and from there on you can carry to do. Like, for example, you can learn self-hypnosis. You could just book an appointment for learning self-hypnosis, and from there on carry on. Now, if at any time, if it triggers you, or it brings out memories, or it brings any discomfort, definitely work with a specialist to heal that part. Okay, thank you, Indira. Deborah, KH, not KHA, it's KHDA. It's the authority in the UAE, who does all the certifications and attestations for schools or any training institute. So it's a branch of the government here who certifies this course. So it's a good idea, once you complete the level 5, to have that certificate and get the stamp attestation of KHDA. It kind of adds to the credibility. Yeah, it's a recognized course, so you're not going to be questioned when you are a practicing therapist later. It's KHDA. Prem says, you mean student of EKA? Yes, I mean student of EKA. So at least level 1. So level 1 upwards and onwards, students of EKA can come and join the support groups. Okay, Veronica says, got it. Thank you too. So I'm aware we are a little like 5 minutes over time, but I am here. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'm more than happy to stay and answer your queries. Thank you. And if there are no questions, then in the next few minutes, we will wind up. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me today. I hope I've been able to bring to you something that is interesting, that is new, that is like a few myths that we may have in our heads that shouldn't be there anymore. I am leaving with you my contact details, or you can always find me in Illuminations later as well. If you have any questions, if there's anything I could help you with in this line of work, please feel free to contact me. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a good evening, and I will wait for a few more minutes in case there are any questions. Thank you, Indira. I'm glad you found it helpful. Thank you, Prem. Thank you, Deborah. You too have a good evening.